This is Josiah Plays Tyranny. Alright, we're back. We're here up on top of Mountain Spire at Vendrian's Well. We've got our party. We've been having a great time. And we're about to start talking to Siren. She is the fifth of our companions that we have yet to talk to. And the sixth will be Kills in Shadow, but we're not going to talk to Kills in Shadow yet. We're going to save the Kills in Shadow conversation for after we do some more questing. But it is time to talk to Siren. It is that time. So we're going to see what Siren has to say. You know, I feel bad for Siren. I was reading about her in the guidebook, and I remember I read that short story of her. She didn't choose to have this power that she has. She hasn't had control over it her whole life, and because of it, she's always been a target, and everyone has always tried to control her. And her family died because of it, and she killed a bunch of people when she was just a little girl. And then Cairo snatched her up, and for years she had to be trained, and they used to keep her gagged all the time, except for when they specifically, you know, were training her or something and needed to ungag her. But the rest of the time she was kept gagged and locked up all the time, and she didn't do anything wrong. So I kind of feel bad for her. So if she's got a little bit of an attitude, I ain't mad at her. I can understand. She's had a pretty shitty life so far. She never really got to have a childhood, which is something I can relate to. Something I can relate to. I mean, not because I had some magical power that would do awesome things. That would have made things much easier. But nonetheless. Okay. Nature of abstractions. It's an eternal mathematician / neuroscientist debate, kind of like chicken and egg. Okay, it's all over my head. It's all over my head. For some reason, the people who watch my stream are much smarter than I am. Now, I don't know why they would want to watch a dumb person like me play games when they're so smart, but hey. I like having them around, because they know a bunch of stuff that I don't know. Which is it's not a difficult bar to surpass, actually. Alright, let's talk to Siren, shall we? We're gonna talk to Siren. Siren, let's have the chat. What's going on right now?
Good day, Fatebinder. It's always nice to see you.
She's so much nicer now than she was before. Siren smiles and blushes at her words.
What do you need?
Alright, let's save this. I like to, when I get these conversations where I get a whole bunch of different options, I mean, once in a while I'll just get lazy and I'll just go through them top to bottom in order. But a lot of times, you may notice this if you watch me go through a lot of these long conversations with lots of options. I like to go through them in what feels to me to be the most conversationally natural manner. I like to save topics that are a little bit more personal or might require somebody to open up more. I like to save those for after the more surface level topics. And I like to ask the questions in an order that makes sense to me in my mind. Like, what order would I ask these questions if I was actually talking to a person? And again, I don't always do that, but a lot of times I do. A lot of times I do. So, you know, you want to get somebody talking. How do you get them to start feeling comfortable? Well, people love to gossip. So, before you start talking about real shit, get them talking about other people, because people love to talk about other people. And then once they get into that flow, then they'll start talking about whatever. So what do you think of your travel companions?
Are we trading in gossip now, Fatebinder? Or are you collecting information to use against us?
She arches her eyebrows inquisitively. See? Gossip. She's already getting excited.
What do you want to know about?
Tell me about Beric.
The walking ring pile? Let's hope you never have to go anywhere unnoticed. There's nothing particularly wrong with him, I suppose, but he doesn't seem overly bright.
Yeah. And he stinks.
I mean, what kind of idiot do you have to be if you can't even take off your armor?
She's got a point. No, not really. In this case, she's being unfair, because obviously it's not his fault that a magical edict trapped him in a set of blades and so forth.
Maybe he's pretty, but wrapped in that getup, who can tell?
He looks at Barrick, smiles, waves, and blows him a kiss. Well, what's Barrick have to say about this?
What was that you said? I couldn't quite hear you.
Barrick grunts, turning to face Siren. She can't even take off her helmet. I know, right?
It's okay, Barrick. I didn't say anything about anyone important.
She speaks slowly and deliberately, patting him gently on the shoulder with her go-go gadget arm, because he's way over there. She then puts her hand to mouth, suppressing a small giggle.
I'll admit he can handle himself in a fight, but he could use a little more up here.
She taps the side of her head. Isn't it ironic that she's tapping her head where her unremovable helmet is? Oh, Siren. Tell me about Ebb.
She's got some power in there, that's for sure. And as long as I'm crippled, I will, begrudgingly mind you, admit she could probably win if we were pitted against each other. Although I'm more than happy to give her a try. Are you game, Ebb? Think you could take me out?
I like Siren.
I'm sorry, sweetie, I'm confused. Are you offering me a duel or something a little more down and dirty?
Okay. Now we have Ebb, the grandmother-aged woman. Well, she might not be. I mean, she's at least. I don't know how old Ebb is supposed to be, but she had 3 kids, and they grew up. Oh God, she's grandmother-aged because she had 3 kids who grew up enough to be in the army. So she's definitely old enough to be a grandmother, hitting on the 15-year-old. Now it's a party. Now it's a party. Alright. Not that I actually judge that, in fairness. It's just so scandalous. It is scandalous, Nox. Ebb winks at Siren, who turns a deep scarlet and looks away.
You know what I meant.
Siren puts a hand on her headdress and looks at Ebb, chewing on the corners of her mouth. Nice.
Oh, don't worry, dear. You're far too young for me. I like someone with a little wear and tear on them, and not just up here.
She puts her hands on her head and winks again. I like Ebb. She's saucy.
Though I suppose I should watch myself around her. You never know how people will react to a challenge.
Tell me about Kills in Shadow.
I'm not entirely sure what to say. I don't think much of her because I try not to think of her much. Have you seen the way she stares at me?
She probably just wants to eat you, no big deal.
Is that a smile? Or is she hoping I let down my guard so she can tear out my throat? Beastmen are too hard to read. Their thoughts are all blood and rending and rutting.
I'm not always thinking of killing with rending claws. Sometimes I'm thinking how human packmates are like brood cubs, like hairless first-season whelps. Need cleaning and protecting. Need beast woman.
Okay, I admit, I would pay a small sum to watch Kills in Shadow quote-unquote cleaning Siren. Because how is she gonna do it? I mean... that would be even more awkward than what Ebb was talking about, I think.
And then it goes from death and blood to love and care, or whatever constitutes love and care to a beast woman, which could very well involve blood and rending and rutting. It's all very confusing. I don't hate her, but She has the uncanny ability to make me uncomfortable without knowing exactly why I feel that way.
You didn't think of that, huh, Anonymous? Well, I mean, it's the first thing that popped into my head. Alright, tell me about Lantry. In before Lantry hits on her, too.
I'm jealous of him. I've heard so much about the Vellum Citadel, and he actually got to see it before all the unpleasantness.
I got to see the Vellum Citadel really up close, right before I burned it into nothingness with my Edict of Fire. She trails off, a sour expression on her face, her wiggling fingers miming tiny explosions.
The sheer amount of power lost that day is only dwarfed by the amount of power required to cause the destruction, and the power to stop it. The sages have my respect. And, by extension, Lantry. Although, I'm not overly happy it was sage magic they used to bind my tongue when I was a child. I can hardly hold him responsible for that.
How kind of you, my lady. It's heartening to hear that someone of your immense station considers a lowly sage like me to be worthy of your attention.
Lantry performs a deep bow to Siren. Oh yeah. Yep. He's working his silver fox charms. Only real question is which one of the grandparently are gonna seduce Siren first. Ab or Lantry?
Although not all sages are necessarily worthy of praise. Some are a little overly fond of excesses, of one kind or another.
She arches an eyebrow. Tell me about Verse.
That bitch?
Whoa.
I'd walk her off the spire if I knew I could get away with it. I don't know why you even waste your time with her.
Okay, I didn't expect that. She hates fucking Verse. What the hell did Verse do to her?
Oh, don't give me that look, Verse. I'm not gonna pretend to like someone I don't. At least you know where I stand. Subterfuge is so low class.
Subterfuge is so last week. Oh my god. Look at her subterfuge, Becky. It's like so big.
Trust me, you manipulative worm. The feeling is mutual. And I find it ironic that you find subterfuge low class, considering how you get inside people's minds and fuck them over.
Man, these two, there is no love lost here. This is like Ebb and Lantry.
If I could get away with it, I'd put a blade inside that pretty little head of yours and twist until your mind was as scrambled as those you invade.
Damn, son.
How vivid.
Siren turns to you and makes a little see what I mean gesture at Verse. I don't know, I'm curious what Verse said about Siren now, yeah.
She's rude, violent, base, impatient, and entirely pointless. You should keep much better company, Fatebinder. You asked me what I thought. I can't help it if the facts are painful to swallow.
She sighs and shrugs. Alright, well, she's got a solid opinion there. But Verse is really good at dodging.
What do you need?
Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
At your service, Fatebinder. What do you need? What did you have in mind? What?
Wait,
I don't.
no,
if that
wrong
puts
one.
me at odds with.
What do you think of Siren? Oh yeah, she said, last thing I do is take orders from you. Yeah, this isn't particular bad. I mean, she doesn't really say, oh, Siren's terrible or anything. She just says that Siren's power is to be something to be wary of, basically. I think Verse would whip Siren's ass. Alright. Let's go back to talking to Siren.
Good day, Fatebinder. It's always nice to see you.
Charm spells rolled against will, not dodge. Yeah, you've got a point.
What do you need? Are we trading in God? What do you want to know about?
Let's talk about something else
What do you
we've
need?
already... What do you think about the state of the world? What is there to say? Kairos' two major leaders can't stop themselves or their armies from fighting like a bunch of children. Neither of them seem capable of dealing with the rebels that are taking them down, which, as far as I'm concerned, is how it should be. The less of the tiers infected by Kairos, the better. If we could eliminate the armies entirely, I would consider that the true victory. I can't really do appropriate Siren voice. Do you know anything about what's going on in the tiers? I know a great deal about what's going on here, considering I am the root cause of at least half of it. What do you want to know? How long have you been here? Since the beginning of the occupation. Kairos wanted me out of sight, but still in use, so I was given to Nerat. It used me to gather fodder for the chorus. What can you tell me about the Scarlet Chorus? If I never talk to another chorus member my entire life, I will consider it a success, no matter what else happens. She folds her arms across her chest and levels a steely gaze at you. I'm trying to add like before every third word in my head. Then I am thrilled to turn your attempted success into a constant failure. I'll try to talk to you more often. Oh, verse. Anything that helps numb me to the droning sound of your voice. Now, do you mind? I'm speaking with the Fatebinder. What do you want to know? Yeah, maybe she hates verse because of the Scarlet Chorus. That's probably a big part of it. You, weren't a member of the chorus? What? Absolutely not. The only reason I worked with them is because I was being forced to. Once Kairos had this monstrosity placed on my head, I really had no choice. I'm not powerful enough to force them to let me go, and they had the numbers to overwhelm me if I tried anything. So, I did what I was told, until you showed up. What was it like working with them? Well, at first I was treated like a queen. I spent all my time recruiting, and let's be honest, the Scarlet Chorus isn't choosy, so it was easy to convince people to join. Toward the end, I actually started fearing for my life. With this thing on my head, I couldn't effectively control an entire army, so hobbling me was quite an intelligent thing for Kairos to do. If anyone had realized I couldn't hold all of them back, I would have been in big trouble. Your little stunt at Vendrian's Well couldn't have come at a better time. What do you think of them? She hates them. I'd have thought my look of disgust kind of answered that question, Fatebinder. They're a worthless, hopeless, disorganized bunch of savages who soon will tear themselves apart from the inside. The only time I ever had fun was when I got to cause chaos, like encouraging them to fight each other to prove their superiority. Thank you, by the way, for allowing that to continue for as long as it did. You see, I knew that siding with Siren on that conquest decision would come back. I just got a ton of loyalty with her. At the behest of Siren, Archon of Song, the Scarlet Chorus at the Vellum Citadel occupied their time engaging in murderous competition to choose the strongest leaders. You upheld the Chorus's right to choose their leaders in the manner that suited their values, and the right of the Archon to govern the army as she saw fit. What's your opinion on their methods? They randomly grab anyone and anything they can get their hands on and hope they'll work if they beat them enough. Sounds like the makings of a fantastic army to me. I am repulsed by them and everything they do. Nerat is a disgusting excuse for a leader, and I look forward to the day I can watch the life drain from its insane eyes. Wow. She's pretty hardcore. Am I being clear enough for you, Fatebinder? Let's talk about something else. What do you know about the disfavored? I really don't know much about them, Fatebinder. I never got a chance to work with them, so I don't think I'll be much help on this topic. What do you want to know? You never worked with them? Not directly. I have been used to inspire people occasionally, and the disfavored were in those groups. But if you're looking for anything of merit from me on the disfavored, I'm not going to be of much use to you. Have you seen them in action? Briefly, I had a few of the battles during Kairos' conquest, but Nerat liked to keep me locked up tight, so I never got a good look at them fighting. What do you think of Graven Ash? He seems capable enough. He's organized and truly seems to care about his men, contrary to practically everyone else I've met here. Yeah, exactly, Anonymous. Let's talk about something else. What do you think about Tunon? Tunon. He makes me uncomfortable. There's nothing behind that mask. It's dark and empty. What do you mean? Everyone has a presence. It's how my magic works. I reach into them and convince their presence to do what I want. He has no presence. When I reached into him, there was nothing. It was bleak. I never want to feel that again. If you have to reach into someone's mind to control them, how did you influence entire armies to do what you want? I can't influence an army, but I can persuade them to feel the way I want them to. If I want to get someone to do a specific thing for me, I have to get inside their head, and that requires a lot more effort. No one can keep me out, but if they're aware of what I'm doing, I can't force them to do anything. At least not with this thing on my head. She knocks a hand against her helmet. Really, I don't know how it works. It just does. You might as well ask me where lightning comes from. Where does lightning come? That would have been amazing if they'd give you the option to ask her where lightning comes from. I want to know about Kairos. What do you want to know? How did you come to work for Kairos? After my father betrayed me and got my mother killed, I was taken by Kairos' men. I honestly don't know where we went, other than it seemed to take forever to get there. Then I was put in school. It was a wonderful and horrible time. I learned how to control and maximize my power, but they underestimated my abilities, or overestimated theirs. I think it was more the latter than the former. They unleashed my true power. Did they believe I wouldn't try to run with it? They tried to train and mold me, and in that they succeeded. They also tried to brainwash and break me, and in that they failed spectacularly. But I was punished for it. Why were you punished? They assumed my abilities were exaggerated. They were powerful mages who had spent years training at their art. How could a little girl ever hope to rival their prowess? I grew tired of their condescension. I hated them for treating me like a child, even though she was a child. Their rules, their discipline, their training. They'd killed my mother, and I would make them pay for it. One day I got bored in class. The teacher's droning voice was putting me to sleep in the afternoon heat. So I thought I'd have a little fun. He was distracted, and he let his defenses down. He didn't consider me a threat. How do you know his defenses were down? I can just feel it. If someone is alert or aware of what's going on, it's a lot harder to get inside. But I know when they're vulnerable. I know how to take advantage of the opening and climb right in. Okay, she's starting to sound like a date rapist at this point. Go on. I started humming. Nothing that would attract his attention, of course. A lullaby my mother sang to me. Fitting, I thought, to invade this man's mind with a song taught to me by the woman they destroyed. I could tell I had gotten inside him when we slowed down ever so slightly. I started singing wordlessly, standing, working in hand motions. They were completely unnecessary, but I'd been trained to be a performer. Then I worked in my words. The window, I sang to him. Look, what's at the window? He turned, entranced, and stared outside, his mouth moving silently as he dreamed an answer to my question. "What's out there?" I asked him through my song. What could that be? I was elated. The fool had left himself alone and vulnerable, and this 8-year-old had dominated his mind. He walked to the window, intently staring at something I couldn't see. "You made him jump, didn't you?" Of course, I didn't mean for him to fall. He was just looking out the window and reached up as if to touch whatever he was looking at, and before I could stop him, he was gone. It looked like he was trying to catch something as he fell from sight. Nice. Nice. Just 8-year-old things. I won't say I'm sorry he died. He was a horrible man, but I didn't mean to do it. However, I was elated. The taste of power was intoxicating. I didn't get to taste it again for a long time. How were you punished? They wanted to cut out my tongue. Even at 8, I didn't blame them. It's what I would have done. But Kairos said no, doing possibly the one kind act she ever did for me. Without the power of speech, I was essentially useless. So they muzzled me. They knew simply holding my mouth shut wasn't going to be sufficient, so they got creative. Using sage magic, they put my voice in stasis when I wasn't in class. I could go through the motions of speech, but nothing came out. Oh, did they take pleasure in it. Between classes, they gave me chores, they berated me, they beat me. I was their slave. The only reason I lived was by Kairos' whim, but I was tortured by everyone else's. There were at least 2 teachers in my classes after the incident, and I was always accompanied by 2 guards, both of whom had been deafened so I couldn't affect them. I accidentally killed one man, and they're acting like I destroyed a realm. Oh my god, all I did was kill a motherfucker. Here is something you can't understand, like how I could just kill a man. I suppose that's what they thought I'd do next. Who knows? Maybe that's what I'm about to do. What was life like with Kairos? For several years, I was surrounded by people who would smile to my face and sneer when I turned away. They were supposed to be my mentors, my teachers, but all they did was resent me. They taught me to refine and control my voice. My power became more directed, more powerful, more subtle. I no longer needed to specifically say what I wanted people to do. I could just think what I wanted, how I felt, and the weaker the mind, the faster they would respond. It still required me to sing, or at the very least make music with my voice, but I could say one thing, but mean something else entirely, and the magic worked. Everything was done for Kairos' edification. They asked for signs of her power, and I was used to bring them about. People praised my name, to the extent that was allowed. But if the focus of adoration ever truly pointed toward me, it was quickly stifled. I didn't see much of Kairos. She was busy taking care of her affairs. But I was never allowed to forget by whose power I was allowed to exist. I was paraded around like the new jewel, and since I had real power, it took a while for the luster to fade. But when I tarnished, I corroded through. And when I stopped being a pleasant distraction, I was passed off to Durat to be forgotten. Surely there was at least one sympathetic scientist. How long did you work for Kairos? 5 years. 2 years of dedicated training, 2 years with training interspersed with travel, performing miracles in Kairos' name, then a year being his pet. Wait a minute, you've called Kairos both him and her. Did I? How clumsy of me. Must have been a slip of the tongue. She smiles mischievously. Is Kairos a man or a woman? You really don't know, do you? That's fascinating. I assumed a Fatebinder would have been given an audience with him. It doesn't seem like she'd let you perform actions in his name without speaking to you. Now she's just fucking with us. That's part of the mystique, isn't it? If your enemies don't know anything about you, how can they properly plan? So why would Kairos let anything out that he didn't want the world to know? Tell me, Siren. Nope. A lady has to keep some secrets, and this is going to be mine. It feels good to have some power in this relationship. It's not going to matter once you defeat him anyway. She'll be gone. She actually thinks I'm going to defeat Kairos? That's rather optimistic. What do you think of Kairos? Honestly, I didn't really think of him at all at first. If I wasn't getting daily reminders that he owned me and could have me killed anytime he wanted, I would have completely forgotten he existed. Don't misunderstand me. I despise him. It's because of him I don't have a family. It's because of him my mother is dead. It's because of him I'm here instead of anywhere else. But as a child, I was kept too busy to interact with him much. Let me see. So, we're not learning anything about Kairos from her, in other words. Let's talk about something else. What about the other groups in the tiers? Who do you want my opinion on? Tell me about the Stonestalker tribe. Not even worthy of my attention. A beast is a beast, and you can't ever make an animal be anything more than what it is.
Humans are also humans, yep. Same as beast women. Only are smaller, weaker, die easily. So beast woman guards packmates from predators with rending claws and killing teeth. Keeps packmates safe.
She hunches low to the ground and ducks her head. Hey, Binary Tuxedo, good to see you again. How you doing?
Yet always packmates are snipping and snarling at beast woman.
Okay, so maybe that was a little harsh. Let's just say that in my brief life, I haven't had much experience with the Beastmen, so I haven't had the chance to form much of an opinion on them. Better?
Kills in shadow, forgives little songbird. Still likes chittering Archon.
She laves her tongue over her fangs, watching Siren with the intensity of a cat eyeing a bird. I feel like if I left these two alone, I'd come back and just find, like, bones, and Kills in Shadow has blood all over her mouth, and she's, like, wiping her mouth. And I'm like, where's Siren? She's like, ah. Ah. Tell me about the local rebel groups. Missed so many hours? Missed so many hours of what? What group do you want to talk about? Tell me about the Vendrian God. Are they even still pertinent? Like, oh my god, the Vendrian Guard are so last year? Are they even still pertinent? Like, who even talks about the Vendrian Guard anymore? After the events of Vendrian's Well, I would have thought no one would want to talk to them anymore. And just because you've decided to throw your lot in with them doesn't change my opinion of them. They may have held off Kairos' forces, but I think anyone could do that in an ancient fortress with nearly impenetrable walls. Tell me about the Unbroken. I haven't had much exposure to them. Ash was intent on dealing with that problem, so they didn't ask for my help. Oh, with Josiah speed, you're not very far behind, Binary. You're really not. Tell me about the Bronze Brotherhood. They're not the most helpful people, but they seem like they want what's best for Lethian's Crossing. Plus, it was a lot easier for me to recruit my own followers with them around. I didn't have to worry about anyone being taken by the Scarlet Chorus or killed by the Disfavored. They were so last act. Yeah, OMG. They were so last act. I mean, Act 1 called, it wants its faction back. Let's talk about something else. Tell me about any of the mage guilds. Generally, I don't like throwing in with other mages. I've not had a good experience with them in the past, so I keep my distance. And they're so demanding. You ask them, very nicely, I might add, how to cast a spell, and they insist they're not a charity, and they're not going to hand over their secrets out of the goodness of their heart. Right, like there was anything good about that one. And I didn't even use my magic on him. That's gratitude for you. She trails off and gives you an intent look. Suddenly your head feels like it's too small for your brain. She closes her eyes and takes a breath, and the feeling dissipates. Who do you want to talk about? Tell me about the sages. I can't say I'm too happy with them, since it was their magic that bound my voice when I was a child. But they are an influential group with infinite knowledge. At least they were. Can you imagine how powerful you could become if you had access to their collections? Tell me about the Earthshakers. Incredibly powerful, but strangely focused in their studies. Why would you want to pour your energy into one thing? Branch out. The magic they're missing out on is incredible. Tell me about the Forgebound. The group that Kairos used to make my hobble, the less I have to think about them, the better. They might be good craftsmen, but unless they craft me a way out of this prison, I'll let you deal with them, thank you. Talk about something else. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about something else. Tell me, what do you know about edicts? See, we had to work our way up to this topic. We just segue from talking about the mages right into edicts. Anything I say would be a wild guess. That's why I'm with you. You seem to have a connection to the power of this land far beyond anything an Archon is capable of. It intrigues me. I want to learn what it is and harness it. So she pretty much just admitted she wants to control me and use me as her tool. Sadly, I don't have the magic needed to enact or break an edict. You're an Archon. You must know something about edicts, Siren. You'd think that, wouldn't you? With all my training and education, Kairos left a very big void in it all. Almost like it was intentional. Yeah, I don't think he wants his underlings to know the secrets of the true power that she has over everyone. Then somebody could take her place. Let's talk about something else.
What do you need?
I would know more about you. What do you want to know? Tell me about your homeland. What is there to say? It's a fuzzy memory, hardly worth recalling. I was born in a northern farming village without a name. That's how out of the way we were. A bunch of families ended up settling near each other, and that was my village. It was about 20 miles from Shadow's Rest, and you probably haven't heard of that either. We were farmers, poor and isolated. Nothing about my home or past is worth dwelling on, Fatebinder. I barely remember my father, my mother is dead, and the only thing people ever wanted from me was my song. That girl is powerful. Bring the songbird, we need a blessing. Our crops are withering. What has that bitch done? Her voice falters with the last statement and she shivers a little. Oh, I'm gonna pry a little bit more out of her with my lore skill. Nothing in your past is worth dwelling on. It looks to me like you remember something. I suppose when an angry mob that fears you and what you can do stones your mother to death while she shields you with her body, it sticks with you. Tell me about your mother's death. No, Fatebinder, I can't. Please, don't make me talk about it. Her voice trembles and tears well up in her eyes. Tell me what happened, I won't ask you again. Execute him! No, wait. Okay, Siren. I will never ask you to tell me that story. I already read the short story about that story. I know what happened. Loyalty 4, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you. There are some things that are just too painful to remember. What do you want to know? You were taken from your family. Technically, by the time I was taken, there was no family left to be taken from. But Kairos' forces had gotten word of my talents and decided I was better used taking over the world than helping local farmers. You have no family left. What happened? What do you think? They're dead. My father might not have cared about me, about us, but my mother would never have let anyone take me while she lived. Without anyone to protect me, I was whisked off to Kairos' court. How would you describe your father? Worthless? Hopeless? Devoid of human emotion? Sometimes I feel like we were complete opposites. He seemed incapable of feeling anything, and I seemed to be nothing but raw emotion. The rat let it slip that my father sold me to Kairos and was responsible for my mother's death. Someone had to egg the crowd on, and someone had to tell Kairos' men where I was. Not that it matters. He's dead, and I'm better off without him. I'm just choosing the options that are appropriate for my character, Anonymous. Besides, I get abilities from raising the loyalty as well. I think I just unlocked something. Once I get out of this conversation, I'll probably have a new ability. What do you remember about your mother? She's dead, so I don't have much to remember. She loved me, that much I know, but sometimes I wonder if what she felt was love or fear. Fear for me, or of me. Sometimes I don't think there was a difference between the two. My mother loved me when no one else did, when no one else could. The world wanted nothing but my voice. All my mother wanted was my happiness. She was the only person in my life that did. Yeah, you can get both loyalty and fear abilities, yes. Because I have pretty high loyalty and fear with Barrack and with Verse. Tell me about your father's death. He disappeared after my mother died and I was kidnapped. I didn't hear anything about him for the longest time, so I assumed he had disappeared and I would never see him again. Then someone brought word that he'd been found. He'd killed himself, and now he's out of my life. For someone who always has a lot to say, that was incredibly succinct. Is there more? You're relentless, Fatebinder. Did you ever think maybe there's some things I want to keep to myself? But yes, you're right, there's more to the story. When I got word he'd been found, I had him summoned to Kairos' court. I wanted to see the man who condemned me to the life I was leading. Oh shit, did she make him kill himself? That's hardcore. When he arrived, I went to see him privately. I wasn't sure what I would feel. Anger? Hatred? I didn't expect apathy. For the first time in my life, I felt nothing. Standing there, staring at the man who ruined my life, waiting for him to notice me, my heart was dull and disinterested. Then he looked up and smiled. He smiled when he saw me. Can you believe that? He smiled and opened his arms to hug me, and it felt like someone reached into my chest and squeezed my heart, sending hate flooding through my veins. So I sang him a song. I told him how tired he looked, how haggard he seemed. I spoke of the weariness he must feel, the guilt that surely plagued him every day. I asked how he withstood the weight of his betrayal. The burden must be too much to bear. I watched the tears roll down his cheeks as he pulled the dagger from his belt. The sobs that tore from him as he held it before him, thinking about his wife and child. The look of ecstatic relief on his face as he dragged the blade across his neck. You made him kill himself? That's horrible. There's some fear, Anonymous. A little bit. We've all done things we regret, Fatebinder, but this is not one of them. My father was a terrible man who finally heard the song that should have killed him 5 years earlier. Now you know what happened to my father. As I told you before, he killed himself. And that's it. Well, that's one way of putting it. A better way of putting it is I murdered him. But alright, we'll go with your thing. Do you have any siblings that you haven't murdered? No. I was close to a boy in my village for a time, but his mother stopped letting me play with him when everyone realized what my powers were. That's the closest thing I ever had to a living sibling. A dour expression clouds her face. A living sibling? A living sibling? My brother died very young. I never knew him, so I hardly count him as a sibling. Life in the middle of nowhere is difficult. For a single child to survive, let alone more, is a testament to the parents. I mean, it's not like we have the fucking Moonstone nearby ever since Lone Wolf got rid of it. Kids growing up is a miracle. Loyalty 1. She looks at you for a time, her lips a thin line. Her tears grow red, her eyes grow red, and tears form in her lids. Finally, she nods slowly and breaks her silence. I remember my mother talking about me getting a little brother. It wasn't long after I started singing and my powers started growing. She told me that soon it would be too hard for her to travel with me. Siren, sweetie, she said, you'll have to go with your daddy. It wouldn't be good for the baby if we kept traveling like that. Maybe after your brother is out here with us, we can all travel together. Siren looks out to the horizon, her voice breaking. You didn't like traveling with your father? No. All he wanted was the money. When we were on the road, he completely ignored me. I was simply something to earn rings with. A tool. Farmers in my village used their rakes and wagons. My father used my voice. Everyone wanted the songbird to sing for them, and they paid us so much money. So we went. But I didn't want to go without my mother. She was the only real comfort I had. When I was with her, I felt safe. Nothing could hurt me. There was a trip coming up, and I knew she wouldn't be going. I couldn't bear the thought of all those days in the care of my father. Her voice breaks again, and she closes her eyes. So, I sang to my baby brother. Did she fucking kill her baby brother too? Damn, Siren, stop killing people! I told him we were all waiting for him. I told him we needed to be a family so we could travel together. I told him he should come out now. Oh, God! What did you do, Siren? I don't know if I meant for it to happen, but I sang the words. No one can resist my voice. My mother's screams cut the song short, and the blood, it was everywhere. I was dragged from the room, but I don't remember who took me. I only remember staring at my foot the rest of the afternoon. The pattern soaked into my shoe, the splatter atop the tops of my toes. I couldn't bring myself to clean it off. I just looked at it. How long had your mother been pregnant? Okay, that's pretty hardcore. So now we've just learned that in addition to making her father kill herself, she caused her mother to have a miscarriage as well. Dude, it's rough having a power that you can't control. So Anana says, so a man saves his daughter from spending her life in mud, giving her a chance to become a star of the court, a lead education, important connections, attention of the overlord and stuff, and she pays back with murder. Never have kids, people. I guess that's one way of looking at it. Not long enough for my brother to survive. Maybe he could have, I don't know. The problem is, when I told him he had to come out, I didn't mean I wanted him out alive. I don't think he would have survived, even if it was time for my mother to give birth. People came and went all day. There was a lot of crying, and nobody looked at me the same way after that. My mother told me that things like this happen all the time. No, I don't think that things like this happen all the time. But even at 5, I knew what I'd done. And part of me was happy. Okay, so we have us another fucking psychopath here. Actually, no. She's 5 years old. That's pretty much typical 5-year-old selfishness. Kids that age don't really... They can't help but be completely selfish. I wanted my mother back, and I got her. She still loved me, she died protecting me, but I terrified her. Every time I opened my mouth, I could see her flinch. And after my brother died, she was never around when I sang. She couldn't bear to watch me. Wow, so she's even more of a tragic figure than I thought she was. These are some legit Planescape Torment type characters here. Because they all have their deep, fucked up torment. I mean, maybe not every character, but like her and Barrack and Verse, they all feel like they would fit into the torment milieu. Let's talk about something else. What do you want to know? Hold on a second. What do you remember about your family? That seems like a weird thing to ask after she's just told me shitloads of stuff about her family. The good thing about being taken from home when you're still a child is you can't miss the childhood you never got. Oh, but you can. Oh, but you can. Alright, we've already talked about all this stuff. You think I should terminate her immediately? Leave her alone with your cat girl in a dark corner? No, but I like Siren. Tell me about your time with the Voices of Nerat. What do you want to know? How did you meet Nerat? I met it when I was unceremoniously dumped on its doorstep by Kairos. All I felt toward it since the moment I saw it was sheer hatred. When one person tires of me, they just hand me off to another. I seem to be quite the handful. No one is truly prepared to deal with me, I suppose. I was its possession for 3 years, stuck doing what it wanted until you came along and started messing around with Kairos' plans. Why did Kairos give you to Nerat? I made the mistake of trying my song on Kairos. Oh, that's not good. Oh, no, you didn't. I'm surprised she's still alive after that. And forgiveness isn't exactly in the Overlord's vocabulary. Interestingly enough, I think it almost worked. Can you imagine how differently things would have turned out if I'd had a little more practice? Exactly. I'm surprised she's alive. Because if she just gets stronger over time, and she almost controlled Kairos, then eventually she'd be strong enough to control Kairos. It's amazing that he didn't, or she, or whatever, didn't just straight up kill Siren at that point. I was brought out at one of the many lavish gatherings thrown at the palace. Kairos loved showing me off. You know, impressing the gathered elite. So I performed. I sang, I danced, I convinced people to join in. Then, in the middle of it all, I had a brilliant idea to work one more performance into the show. Something that would be the ultimate end to the evening. I added a counterpoint to my song and directed it at Kairos. In it, I mentioned that it might be in everyone's best interest if Kairos ended up impaled on a sword. I honestly didn't think it would work, but why not try, right? Why not try? What the fuck? Oh, she's not a smart kid. She was not a smart kid. Why not try? What did she think was gonna happen? What did she think was gonna happen? Why didn't she mouse over Kairos and look at his will defense first and see that it's like 200? It went as far as Kairos unsheathing one of the Royal Guard's swords, but then everything stopped. I don't know why. It was probably me. I got too excited and lost my control. But whatever the reason, Kairos was suddenly out of my control and let out a terrible shout. Weren't you afraid of getting caught? Of course I was. But I've seen how the world works, especially Kairos' world. People don't live long, and when they're disposed of, it's violent and sudden. I figured I was dead anyway, so why not try to rid the world of a horrible threat? Really? You were trying to save the world? Fine. I was trying to save my own skin. Happy? I was 12, so forgive me if self-preservation was in the front of my mind. Oh, look. A young lady who thinks of nothing but herself. Do you want to hear this story or not? Yes, go on. Everyone stared, frozen by the yell echoing back at us. Kairos quickly recovered and gave the appearance of cheering us on, but I was convinced I was about to die. Interestingly, my execution never came. I finally realized I couldn't have been punished at the party because Kairos would have to admit I had exerted my will onto the Overlord. And without a good reason to call for my death, I couldn't have been executed afterward. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think Kairos could have just killed her for any reason, any time. What do you mean she couldn't have... What? Who does Kairos have to worry about explaining to? I was the songbird. I did nothing but spread Kairos' will and gather the armies. Would you execute your best and most loved recruiting tool? So Kairos worked with Nerat, and they gave me this helmet to bring me back in line. Then I was handed over to Nerat, that monster, because it is the one thing in the world I can't control. Present company excluded, Fatebinder. Why can't you control him? I've been inside its mind time after time, and I've never been able to get a handle on what's going on in there. Every time I talk to it, I feel like a different person is talking to me, and every one of them wants something different. And one in particular wants something it's never, ever going to get. Wait a minute, what does Nerant want from you that he's never going to get? Never gonna get it, 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 never get it, boom, doom, doom, boom, doom, boom. Okay, sorry, that's just saying, it's a song. Does he want that? The obvious thing? Come on, Fatebinder, you can't be that naive. I'm still a child, and I know about adult urgings, as one of my old teachers so clumsily put it. It's interesting that she refers to herself as a child there. I thought all this time she was like, don't call me a child, don't think of me as a child, I'm not a child. But now she just called herself a child. Somewhere inside that chaotic mind, I saw the most depraved and disturbing desires I've ever had the misfortune of feeling. No matter what Nerat says to you, do not trust it. That will always end badly. Wow. Depraved. I mean, I guess that doesn't surprise me, right? I mean, you think of Voices of Nerat, depraved and disturbing desires. Sure, of course that's what the Voices of Nerat's gonna have. That he's fucking crazy, super evil guy. What has Nerat had you do for him? Now, if that isn't the question that goes right to the heart of the storm, I think you should ask me what it hasn't had me do, or at least tried to make me do. I've been inside its mind time and again. Wait, we just heard this. We just heard that again. Let's talk about something else. And we will talk to Siren about the remaining couple of topics here in our next episode. But that's going to do it for this one. If you're watching the stream, don't worry, I'm not stopping. I'm going to keep playing for quite some time, but if you're watching on YouTube, that's going to be the end of this episode. So thank you for watching. This has been Josiah Plays Tyranny.